Welcome back to the podcast, everyone.
On this episode of Thought Hoarders, we just wanted to kind of reminisce about our childhood and some of our more memorable stories, whether they're crazy or just like hilarious or, you know, just we can't believe it happened, still kind of stuff. So really, we're just going to kind of dive right into it and start sharing as they come up. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I do want to go first, because on the last episode, we were talking about a couple of just memories and stories that we had and things we did as kids. And I remember the Avatar show having a huge impact on us. And we spent a lot of time playing out in the woods, pretending we could control the elements. I was Earth, if you can't already tell by the vibes that I put off. But so, I was in charge of the rocks.
Of course.
And figuring out where we sat, figuring out where was a good place to play, where the deer go, because somehow I could tell where the deer went.
It was Earth.
And I could control all those things, but one day we were out at my cousin's house, and we were playing Avatar, and we were down by a little creek, and whenever you're a kid, maybe it was just me and my friends and family, but whenever we were kids and we saw wet mud, sand, it was quicksand. Anytime, it was always quicksand. I accidentally stepped in the quicksand and I lost a little blue sandal. And I wish I could describe to you the material of the sandal, because it was the way they used to make them in like the 90s. It was almost like a scrunchy.
Was it kind of like, they were like, they do like a weird thing where
really
it's like,
squiggly,
squiggly,
but like kind of spongy.
Yes, I know exactly
So
what you're
I
talking
had
about.
a bright blue one, and I stepped in the quicksand, and it was gone. It came off of my foot, it stayed in the mud, and it was gone for years. We used to go down and look for it and try to find it, and I just, kind of accepted the fact that I was never going to see it again. Obviously, you lose something in quicksand, you're never going to get it back.
Right, it's eaten by the earth.
It was like, I think 6 years later maybe, I was back at my cousin's house, and my aunt had it on her table outside, and she said, "Hey Haley, we found that sandal that you lost like 6 years ago." I lost my mind. This was such a big deal in my life as a kid.
Right.
Losing the sandal, and the fact that they found it, I lost it. I couldn't believe it. I talked about it like for the rest of the day, probably for the rest of the week. I couldn't get over it. You wouldn't think that would happen, and who knows where they even found it, because they didn't explain to me where they found it, or if it just came back up.
It could have just came back up, but like
the quicksand
500 feet that way.
Yeah.
It's so weird how that works. This one isn't as exciting, but I only actually thought of it because of you. It's really not exciting at all. But I had a similar situation with this ring I'm wearing. It's my class ring. I lost it for like a year. And then one day...
where? Do you remember?
I don't... See, that's the thing. One day it was just empty from my life.
Oh.
I think I took it off one time while I was driving, because it's the only thing that makes sense to me, because maybe I was just like hot, and sometimes your fingers get like swollen, and I was like, I'm gonna take it off because I'm just not whatever. And I just lost it, and it just never came back. And like years later, I was cleaning out my car, and it was underneath one of the seats, and I'm just like, it felt to me like it just spawned there.
Like, it just disappeared one day.
And then came back into this, reality, and I found it. But the actual story I wanted to tell. So I am a procrastinating overachiever. So I will put stuff off until the very last minute, and then I will do my best to go way above and beyond the instructions to make it good. I feel like it's, to me mentally, I don't ever think about it this way, but I feel like it's probably because I'm trying to like make up for the fact that I'm procrastinating. I decide to like go above and beyond with it. So in 8th grade, we had a lot of book reports we had to do. And for those book reports, we had to write, like a certain essay, answer some questions. But the other thing we had to do was a project. That project could literally be as simple as making an advertisement for this book. We had like a list that we could choose from, but there was also an option of like, do whatever you want. If you get really creative, do what you want. So most of the time, I went crazy above and beyond. I made an entire Percy Jackson board game using my mom to help me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we printed an entire movie-size movie poster for the host before it was even going to become a movie. My mom had access to a printing company, and I used the heck out of it.
Yeah.
We cut and crafted an entire cardboard box into like a sliding thing. I still have the Percy Jackson board game. In fact, we should just
patent it.
Well, Percy Jackson already has a board game now,
oh, really?
But they didn't at the time. And honestly, we could bring it up and play it. It's at my parents' house.
That'd be fun.
Like, Anyways, so the actual story is, though, for one of them, I read the Warrior Cats books, and if you guys don't know what Warrior Cats is, it's basically a story about the cats, and they have like clans, and there's 4 different clans, and they have their own set boundaries, and like it's about the conflicts that happen, whether it's from a completely separate clan or like within the clans themselves. But I was an animal lover, so this was like my jazz. So I decided to make a movie trailer for a Warrior Cats book. So I went out to my friend's house. She had 2 cats and a beagle puppy.
Oh,
and we
my gosh.
filmed this thing. Like, I used text narration. I was using Windows Movie Maker or something to like edit this. But I just do remember us like taking the day. We kept trying to get the cat to go walk across the dam in their backyard that held the lake from like going anywhere else. And we were just like, we gotta get this shot. And like, I just remember that.
That's
Like,
amazing.
we just went out to her house and I was like, let's go, film it.
Well, I think that's really cool, especially in the fact that you still are interested in that kind of thing.
It's weird. That was like, also, her cat's name was Simba, and then years later they found out it was a female, so her name was Nala.
I think I remember you telling me that in high school. You're like, oh hey guys, by the way, my friend just found out that her cat is a female.
So it's now Nala, not Simba anymore.
I remember, because whenever I got a camera, I was instantly into making little short videos. And my cousin Harley is just like a natural, I could almost say actor, comedian.
Really
he can
is.
do everything, and
a
if he's in
natural.
the room with you,
You can literally throw him into any situation, give him like 3, like, here's what you're supposed to do, and he just takes it and
yeah,
just,
he'll
like,
do it. He'll do a great
so
job, and he
good.
can make anyone laugh. He's a hilarious human being. And so I
Okay.
decided he was going to be the star of a video. I'm not exactly sure what the theme was, but I remember
it's a video, that's what the
later,
theme is.
yeah, I remember later in high school finding the SD card that had this video information on it. And I just remember him coming in from a bedroom, and this was shot in my house, and he like picks up an item of clothing, and he smells it, and he like gags, and then he puts it on, and he goes to the living room, and all I remember after that is him seeing, we had stuffed cats. We weren't going to use real cats because this was extreme. I just remember we set it up so that he did something that made the cat explode. He threw a remote and the cat exploded, but we didn't know how to do that at the time. We didn't even use Windows Movie Maker. We just took the clips and just had it as that and
Yeah,
rewatched
that's all you did.
it.
That's all you did. You literally, you just filmed them how they were supposed to
So
be
we
filmed.
just imagined the
placed them side
explosion.
by side.
We just imagined the explosion and everything that it was supposed to be, and just hoped that maybe one day we'd have the technology.
You should go back and edit those.
I think so. We had a friend in high school who took digital media, and I gave him them, and he did it. He did it later.
Oh my god, that's beautiful.
He probably still has them on file somewhere. I can message him.
So, this also reminded me of something. This is how we kind of wanted to go, is just remind each other of things. So, when I was babysitting still, there was these kids I babysat for about 3 years or so, and I got a Windows Surface tablet at some point during my time babysitting them. And we figured out that this Windows Surface, because they wanted to play with it, you know, because they're kids. They weren't actually that young. I think the oldest, the youngest he ever was probably like 11 or something.
Yeah.
You know, he was maybe 10. But they just wanted them to have a supervisor there because, anyways, you know, babysitting. So we figured out that I could download a movie editing app onto the Surface, and the Surface itself could record things. So we were constantly making films.
Yes.
We like had ones where their cats got turned supersized, and so we used Barbies to replicate them running away from the cats. We had situations where like my brother was there, and he was like, if I was 17, he was 13, so he was still very like, my brother has always been passionate about like, he's a kid, you know, and he was like the super villain, and the whole plot of this, we made an entire fort out of blankets in the basement, which was the spaceship, and then we had a play fridge, and he was like out of coffee, so he raided the earth of all the coffee, and these kids were the 3 actors, like they did everything. So one time he's like, one of the kids was the news anchor and then also the superhero at the same time. So he was like the news anchor, and he's like day 13 without coffee, and then he'd like fall asleep, and then he'd wake up for a second, and just like, it was so much fun. And we'd have goofs with it. And then there was one where the 3 of them put on a fake news show, and at the end the cops came in and were like, you're doing something illegal, and they had to, like, run and throw pillows at the cops off screen.
Wow.
And, like, I had to be the cop even though the camera was set up on, like, because the Surface comes with, like, a way to prop it up, which was, like, genius at the time. It was, like, pre-pop socket, but it was, like, it came with its own stand to hold itself up. So I had it holding itself up with a combination of that and, like, a book, and I had to run in and be, like, the cops, like, chasing them away, and, like...
I bet
it was great.
I bet they
That
look
was
back
fun
on
time.
that memory with as much, like, joy as you do. Like, they're probably thinking to themselves on occasion, we had the best babysitter that one time. Do you remember those movies? Because that's so creative.
We rewatched them too. We would just like, I'd come over and let's be like, they'd be like, let's watch the movie again. Like, let's watch it again.
Wow.
And also, another way I was the best babysitter, I let them. One time they had like a cousin over, and the cousin had left, and they still hadn't unblown or put away the mattress for it. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna supervise you guys, but we put like 3 mattresses at the bottom of the stairs with blankets and pillows and everything, and I let them mattress slide down the steps.
It was safe.
Like 7 times. But I had to like supervise.
Yeah, it's like their parents get on and watch this podcast, and you immediately get a phone call. Hey, we know what you
I know
did.
this is 5 years ago, but...
And nobody got hurt in the end.
No, here's the thing. They're gonna like find this podcast 5 years from now. They're gonna call me and be like, we're watching your podcast, and we're on episode 100, and I'm gonna be like, which episode? Where are you at?
Yeah, we're gonna be way deep into the podcast. That's funny.
Deep into
I used to do a couple of babysitting things, but gigs. If
I
you
had
so called
regulars,
them.
like, I
Well,
had like...
you were very good with kids.
I like kids.
Congratulations, you're one of the lucky ones who actually likes kids.
I taught children taekwondo, so I kind of had to like them a little bit.
Oh yeah, I'm one of the many millennials who hates kids and never plans on having any. Subscribe if you agree.
Smash that like button.
Smash that like button if you hate kids. I
Smash the retweet
I was an
button.
okay babysitter. Every time that I babysat, I remember I was with a friend who was babysitting. I wasn't the babysitter. I was just with the
You were
friend.
just there.
She was the one getting paid. And both of the kids ended up liking me better in the end. And she was
It's
so
'cause-
upset about it.
It's because you didn't have to enforce the rules.
And
you
I
were
was
just
new,
playing
and I
with
was just
them.
fun.
Yeah.
And I was digging through one of the kids' closets, and I found his Nerf gun stash. And I was like, okay, it's starting now. And I just like, we just began through the whole house. We just had a Nerf war. But, and then she got so upset with that. She was so sad. And I knew it wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
It's like, they're just kids. They don't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
But I babysat my cousins a lot, and I just remember I was pretty hard on them when it came to doing chores, because I could be a little bit harder. They were my cousins. And they were a little bit upset and bitter about it, but whenever they did it, I always made sure to cook them, like, a phenomenal meal, or a phenomenal dessert. Their parents had all the ingredients you could ever need for anything, and all the cookbooks. And I just went wild. I love cooking. And it wasn't recently, but after I stopped babysitting for them, they were like, Haley, we miss the amazing meals you used to make for us. They're like, we miss you.
We miss you, Haley.
But for the most part, I hate babysitting.
So going back to the babysitting, have you ever heard of camera obscura?
That sounds familiar.
So basically it's this phenomenon. It's actually something that happened towards the beginning of the invention of the camera. Someone accidentally discovered this and it led to the invention of the camera. If you're in a room, completely pitch black, except for like a hole like about this big in like the window. So the way light works is it travels strictly in a straight line. So if there were light coming off of this, it would hit the ground straight down, and then the bottom would hit the ground straight that way. So light actually flips images, and our eyes actually see upside down, but our brain processes it and flips it for us. They proved this by doing a study where they made people wear glasses that made their eyes see upside down, and after like a week of like migraines, their eyes flipped the image again. They took the glasses off and their vision was back
So
upside
everything
down.
is upside down.
Naturally, yes. So the way this works is you have just a pinhole of light. You literally have to seal off everything. You cannot have any light coming in but this like pinhole of light. And then you let your eyes adjust and you can literally see the outside world upside down and projected all across your room. And the really phenomenal part about it is at first you're like, oh, this is really cool. But what's really cool is seeing someone walk. They're like walking outside and you see them walking in your room upside down.
kinda
And that's when
creepy.
you realize that it's like live. Like this isn't just like a pretty projection. This is like you actually seeing the outside world. So what we were doing is we took one of the kids' bedrooms and literally I did this entire thing for him. It involved a lot of cardboard, duct tape, like comforters, because you really have to block out all the light from the window. And then one of them would go outside and run around, and we'd sit in there and be like, ooh, ah, like watching them run around upside down on the ceiling. And they'd be doing like the silly dance moves kids do where they're like, you know, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That's
But it was
neat.
like, I wish I thought about it recently, about doing it here, but it's just like you literally have to block off so much light. We'd have to put something at the base of the door because even that much light, like coming
Can ruin it.
You wouldn't think about the fact that there's light coming through the bottom of the door to our apartment, but there is, and that's like enough to ruin the entire thing.
Yeah, I would love to see that though, because I've never experienced that before.
Yeah, I've experienced it like 2 or 3 times because we did it at my house. I did it at a summer camp, which is where I learned about it. They did it for us, and then yeah.
That's really awesome. So when you were talking about taping blankets up to the walls, it made me think of my fondest blanket fort experience as a kid.
Yeah.
I have some good blanket fort experiences as an adult, which we can get into later. But I remember on occasion my sister and I would go to, we called them aunt and uncle, but I think they were more of a cousin. We would go to their house, and they lived in town, in our hometown. And they were, I think, still newly married. They were fresh at the whole marriage thing, and they were so happy together in their little home. And it was something that was so beautiful, and I always loved seeing as a kid.
Yeah.
Because you see that, and you just think, this is what I want.
Yeah.
But, so anyway, they were babysitting us on occasion, and I remember them going extremely out of their way to build us the most magnificent blanket fort ever in their living room. And it just took up the whole thing. I'm not sure if there were string lights, but let's just throw this in for the fun of the story. It was magical and everything a kid could ever want. And we all sat in it together. There was lots of pillows and padding on the floor, and we had popcorn, and we just watched movies, and that was just a really good memory as a kid having.
Yeah.
I loved that.
I don't know what made me think of this, but I remembered a memory. So
You remembered a memory?
I remembered memory. So as a kid, I didn't really have many, like, there's some kids who have, like, neighbors who are, like, their best friends, or, like, you were lucky to have, like, a family who was nearby, who was your best friend. I didn't super have that, but 2 doors down from me, so there was a house between us, I discovered that a girl from our class lived there, and we're cousins, and I didn't realize this till she was in my class, and we realized. But she was only there sometimes because it was at the time her mom's boyfriend, it's now her stepdad, house, so occasionally they'd be over there and occasionally they wouldn't be. And if they were over there, we used the home phone and they'd be like, is Caitlin home? And I'd call over, is she home? Like that kind of thing.
Home
like
phones.
Home phone, you had to memorize people's phone numbers, like,
Wow.
that kind of stuff. But what we do sometimes is we would both take our DSs and we would sit at the very edge of our yards with the neighbor's yard between ours, and we would like try to trade Nintendos. We'd like shout at each other, and like we'd get on PictoChat, and we'd like just hang out sitting at the edge of the yard, like playing together. And like that's just what you did. That was your own. You didn't have texting. You had Nintendo DS.
I remember PictoChat.
PictoChat. You were really fancy if you color the whole screen and then use the eraser right with.
Yes.
You were so fancy if you did that.
Yes! That was the first thing I wanted to do when I got on PictoChat. I was like, I'm on a mission, and you just like, you spend like 30 minutes.
You do, because like you're writing at literally like this tiny like 1 pixel line, and so you're sitting there like trying to get every single dot, and the DS screens really weren't that sensitive because it's meant for kids.
Yeah.
It would just break the touch screen super fast if it was more sensitive than it was.
Yeah, true.
And
I remember my sister and I had DSIs. We each had pink ones. And we didn't have many people to like interact with because we did live in the middle of nowhere, and our cousins were more of the, what are those? They were like PlayStation ones? What are those called?
PSPs? PlayStation players?
PSPs. They were more PSP kind of people. But I remember meeting a friend. We used to go camping all the time. There's a state park. I'm not exactly sure where in Missouri it is, but it's called Sam A. Baker, and if you're from Missouri and you've been there, congratulations, because it's an amazing place, and you probably think so too. We met a little girl there who was our age at the time named Sarah, and we spent almost the whole camping trip after we found out that she had, Nintendos just like ours.
Yeah, that's all you did.
Playing with each other's
That's all you
Nintendos.
did.
Yeah, it was amazing. Such a fun time.
Did you ever have like, so I didn't ride the bus, but you'd occasionally take them for field trips, and you'd be like, who has the DS with that? And you'd be like, I do! Man, let's play some Mario Kart! Because what was really cool cool about Mario is only one person had to have the Mario game, and then everyone else could do DS download play to play the Mario
Really?
game with them. Yeah. So Mario Kart and Mario Party, only one person had to have the game, and then you could have up to like 7 other friends playing with you, even if they didn't have the game. And it was like, that was the best thing, because it was so hard to find someone who had the same game as you.
Yeah.
And you would just play the heck out of it.
I don't remember. I must not have had that like ability at the time.
I'm now getting distinct memories of something. So
Throw it out there.
So, whenever I was in middle school and elementary school, I always had after school care till about 4:30 or sometimes 5, normally 4:30 though, because my parents didn't get off work till then, and school got out at like 3 or 2:30 or something, so
Yeah.
there was like always a set group of kids who were always at daycare, and you just became good friends with them. So the older kids had study hall at after school care before they got to go outside, and it was an opportunity for you to do homework. It was all like the middle school age kids, so like 5th through 8th grade.
Yeah.
Well, we had this like corner of the library that was really hidden and secluded, and eventually,
Ooh.
because of us, no one else could sit there. Because we were too doing stupid stuff back there, they banned everyone from sitting back there after a while. But we would like bring our DSs and we'd sit there like, so if you don't know about Nintendogs, you have to use the voice commands sometimes to teach them to like sit or whatever.
Oh,
and if you
yeah.
got a new dog, you had to be able to speak to say their names. That was the worst part about it. If you ever got a new dog and you realized you weren't somewhere where they could hear you, I'd put my hoodie over my head. I would have the DS like right here, trying to like say the dog's name. But like we had this thing where like I would be the person that they'd hand the DS to, and I'd be like, sit, and I'd be like whispering, sit. And like then the dog would sit and you'd feed it a little treat really fast, like good job. And like we just goofed around in that corner, and like that was just our corner, and we had so much fun back there. And then I remember one time, and this was in a different corner after that corner got banned, one of my friends drew on my face with a marker, and like it wasn't much apparently, but they just kept telling me that I hadn't gotten it off when it wasn't even there to begin with. So I was like, well, fine. And I just took the marker and I drew all over my face. And I was like, fine, if there's going to be one spot there, then all of it's going to be there. And the teacher's like, what the hell are you guys
Stupidest
doing?
thing.
And I was just like spiteful. I was like, you guys.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
I used to do the stupidest stuff when I was in elementary school.
Me as a 5-year-old being like,
Yeah, well, you do like the stupidest stuff to like make people think that you're cool.
Uh-huh.
Like I remember I was in, and this is a stupid story, and I'm so embarrassed to even say it, but we're here.
Yeah.
I remember I was in the restroom, and 2 girls came in, and I knew them, and I wanted to be friends with them. So I was like, I want to say that I did something crazy and funny to make them laugh and make them like me. Because when you're a kid, you don't think about it; you just think about what you want.
Yeah.
And so I busted out of the bathroom, so I was like, I put my head in the toilet, because I was like, I'm funny, and they're going to understand that I was joking. And then they went and told the teacher. They were like, Haley put her head in the toilet, and the teacher had to sit down with me and just tell me why I shouldn't do that. And I just sat there and didn't even say that I just made it up. I just took it. I just took it like, okay, I won't ever do it again. You guys. Don't try to impress your friends.
By putting your fake head in the toilet.
Oh, man.
Okay. I remember in preschool, they told us not to eat Play-Doh, right? Because you're not supposed to eat Play-Doh. But ours was homemade Play-Doh. And so I would take little pieces and I would eat it. And Play-Doh, if you don't know, if you've never eaten homemade Play-Doh before, it's super duper salty. I mean, salty. I would like eat a little bit and then I'd sprint over to the water fountain and like take a drink because I was like, that was like too much.
Yeah.
And I just remember like we'd always, like before nap time, we'd always watch, I think it was like Dragonland. We'd get to watch an episode of Dragonland where they're like, come along, take my hand.
Wait.
That
The one where
song-
they had the magic rock?
Yep. That was a dragon scale.
Show.
That was a dragon scale.
That was the best show.
Yeah, so we'd watch that before nap time, and then we had to go to sleep. And like me and my friend would be like, we'd be like pretending to sleep. We'd be like, psst, like at each other,
Yeah.
and they'd be like, go to sleep.
Do you remember when psst was a thing? When you were so young that psst was a thing?
It's always the thing.
Yeah.
Forever.
I've never psst someone. Recently, you ever psst someone?
I'm
They
gonna
don't
start.
understand. I'm gonna like go to somebody in Walmart. Psst.
Okay.
Man, I'm gonna buy all of the dragon. Is it Dragon's Tail?
It's like Dragon Tales, like a story.
Dragon Tales.
Yeah.
That's what it is. I'm going to totally buy those for my goddaughter. I'm gonna get
You
her
should.
all
Oh
those.
my god, yes.
I have such fond memories of that show.
It was good.
So you were saying the Play-Doh story?
Uh-huh.
I remember it was a little bit higher in elementary school, maybe like 5th grade-ish, where we started doing projects with those big, huge, like, poster boards where it was, like, foldable. I don't remember what the project was. I don't remember what it was about. I just remember having a big poster board and having to do work to make a real thing. And my project was about Play-Doh. And I made recipes for Play-Doh. I did regular Play-Doh, and then I did edible. Because everybody wants to eat Play-Doh.
Yeah.
And it was made of peanut butter, and it's still, you know what, tasted just like regular Play-Doh. It was just okay if you swallowed it. And everybody in class went nuts. They were like, oh my god, it's the best thing ever.
Yeah.
And that's my Play-Doh story.
So I'm going to jump ahead to 8th grade. So if you don't know, normally senior year of high school, you get like a senior skip day, right? Well, because the parochial school I went to, which if you don't know, that's like a private, like, some sort of religious school. It was preschool through 8th grade, and after that, our school did not have a high school that was associated with it. There were just options of places you could go to that were similar. So because of that, our 8th graders were kind of treated like seniors of high school. And so we got an 8th grade skip day. So on 8th grade skip day, I distinctly remember me and 2 of my friends went to our local Walmart and we played hide and seek throughout that Walmart. There was at one point a lady like chasing us around, trying to like, who was like kicking us out. She's like, get out!
Oh my
Can't
gosh.
do that. But like I remember going into like the tire section and like moving a tire and like getting behind it, and like we would hide in the clothes racks, and like that was like a baller time. Like that was fun. It's like really, well, that's not the only story of me getting kicked out of somewhere, and that wasn't like really kicked out. But we went to Target down in Cape, and this was like with Kevin's and like Kayla and like those people, and we did like a conga line, and we kept trying to bring people into it, and we kept like
That
talking
sounds
to people.
amazing. I would do that now.
And a Target employee was like, we're gonna have to ask you guys to leave.
Oh, that's so sad.
He's like, I'm really sorry, but you guys have to go. And we're like, okay.
That sounds like if I was like drunk in public,
Uh-huh,
that's what I would do. I would
just
start a conga line. I would go somewhere where there's a ton of people.
You're just like, hey, come
That sounds like a really fun time. If I do that, I'm gonna make sure to mention it on the podcast. I'll let you guys know because I'm gonna stay true to my word. But that reminds me, if we're talking about, you know, a couple of stories from when we were in school, I don't remember what grade it was, but it was still in elementary school. I went to a Catholic school. And we're not really supposed to write in some of the books, but we had one that it was okay to write in for assignments and such.
Yeah.
I remember just doodling. Actually, most of my memories from school are of me doodling. I doodle a lot, if you don't know. But in one of my religion books, I lost interest in the subject, as always, for me. And I just started drawing in this book, and there's a lot of, like, kids in it, pictures of children, pictures of Jesus, and all of the people associated with him. And I may or may not have drawn devil horns or also a Hitler mustache. And when you're doing it, you don't care because you're like, I'm funny and I'm just gonna do this. And then afterwards, and I looked down at it, and I kind of like looked up at my teacher, and I thought, if someone sees this, I'm gonna be in so much trouble. I just broke out in a hard sweat. I was like, I can't let anyone see my religion book. I have to burn this after school is over. I was so scared.
Okay, so in my parochial school that we went to in 5th grade, we all got a Bible. Or maybe even earlier than that. And it was like everyone in your class had the same exact Bible, and you also had the same exact, like, Martin Luther thing that you had to study for communion. I don't even know what that was called anymore. It was like a little blue book, and it was like Martin Luther, and like it was about the things that had been posted on the board, and you had to like study them by 8th grade.
Yeah.
So we were all horrible, and it was super common to like doodle on the side of your Bible. So like, you know, it's like this thick. We just draw.
Yeah.
Just draw on it, and that was normal, and I still have it. The binding is completely separated from it.
Wow.
It says like Holy Bible on the side of it. Like I drew Holy Bible, I drew like a stick figure, and it says like LOL on it. You had to get really good to like make straight lines because that's like where the pages are. So you had to like be really practiced to like get those lines.
Yeah, you can't mess it
It was
up.
like,
Yeah. Well,
Oh my
you got
God.
to keep that one, right?
Yeah,
That's
it's
your
mine.
personal one. See, I got to keep that religion book, so I thankfully threw it away as soon as I had the opportunity. So nobody caught me.
oh my.
But we had a book. It was everybody in the school got math books, and you had to give them back at the end of the year. And I didn't realize that at the end of the year, my teacher was going to say, if you drew on what did you call it? The
Like the
binding.
side,
If
yeah.
you drew on that part of the book, or in any part of the book, you're gonna, detention. You have to buy a new book or something bad's gonna happen. And I drew a snowman.
I think I drew a snowman.
I drew a snowman on like the side.
I drew a snowman on the side
And
of my Bible.
I was in another situation. I was sweating. I turned because everybody had to get up individually and go hand it to him one at a time. And then he inspected the book and then he put it away. And I was so scared. I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen. Like, when you're a kid, think about the consequences.
No.
And I handed it to
What are
him,
consequences?
and he looked at it, and he stopped, and then he put it up with all the rest of them. And I was like, thank God. I was like, I'm done doodling in books forever.
Oh my god. So in middle school, we had like, so these students I was literally with them from preschool to kindergarten. It was the same like 20 people. We were just in a class together. You kind of become
Very close.
either friends or horrible enemies. Like that's just the
Oh,
two
yeah.
options that you have. But our class was relatively close knit, especially by 8th grade year. We kind of got over a bunch of immaturity that we had.
Yeah.
You know, because 8th graders are super mature. Anyway, so we had like a select group of stories that just the entire class knew about, and it was about our class history kind of, and we would just share them every once in a while. So two of the stories that I distinctly remember to this day is one of our students, one of my fellow classmates back in 3rd grade. His mom was like observing the class for the day because I think she was going to school for her teaching degree, so she like came and got to observe the class. And the teacher at one point was like, hey, so and so, do you want to introduce the person here? And he goes, this is my mommy. And like it was like 3rd grade, and that's just like the fact that he called her mommy still like in the middle of class was like hilarious. Like that was the hilarious like peak of comedy, and we like still talk about it, and it was just still like tons of laughs. The other one is one of my peers' parents were drunk one time, and they needed someone to come like get them because they were drunk, and they
At school?
no, this was like a separate time, but it's a story that we told at school because it was just
Okay.
hilarious.
Okay.
So they're like, we have multiple roads that are just letters in our town. So we have like B, V, M, E, P, all these places.
Yeah, double B.
And so she was like, this is just the part that we always quoted, because we just like skim over the rest because this was the funny part. She's like, we're either on E road or P road. Just tell them we're peeing on E road, and that was just like, that was the peak of comedy. It was like her
Wow.
saying we're peeing on E road because she couldn't figure out if they were on E road or P road, and that was it. And that was the peak of comedy.
Oh my gosh. When you're in 8th grade, yeah.
Just tell them we're peeing on E road.
Oh my gosh. That's hilarious. I don't think I have many like happy stories with my class as a whole. It's not like they put me to the side. I kind of like put myself to the side. I was like, I don't really belong.
I didn't
with
fit in
these
with a lot
people.
of them either. I feel that. I found my people in high school like this one.
Yeah. Aww. Thanks. I don't think I have many memories with people's moms though. I did get invited to like a pool party one time. It was everybody who was in my Catholic school. We went to a pool party and I was like, hey guys, by the way, I'm leaving this school. Bye.
Bye.
It's probably the last time you're all gonna see me. I still
Bye.
have, because when you were in our school, well, my Catholic school went until you could graduate
Yeah.
from that school, but I left in 9th grade.
Mhm.
And we had an event in that grade where we contributed one small item that pretty much represented you as a whole for a time capsule.
Oh.
And like our discussion earlier when we said if you were a horse person as a kid, you most likely ended up being a wolf person later on. I was going through my wolf person phase when we did that.
Okay.
And so I contributed a little wooden wolf figurine. So it is buried in dirt somewhere. And one of
Dirt.
these days, that whole class is going to be there, and they're going to dig it up, and it's going to be.
That's
I'm not
gonna
going
be
to be there.
iconic. You're not gonna be there. Not even close.
Hopefully they'll remember me.
How could you be forgotten?
Remember that one girl who was really weird and stuck her head in the toilet?
That's what they remember about you is the toilet thing. So we did something similar when I was in 7th grade. We had to write letters to our future selves. We gave our teacher our address, and like she was gonna mail them to us when we graduated high school. And she did. And I like forgot about it until I graduated high school. And it was such a weird experience because there was stuff in it that I just didn't remember anymore. You know?
Oh, yeah.
And it kind of reminds me of how like, I don't know if you ever did this, but like, so for example, password hints. If you have a password for something and they make you give a hint for it, so that in case you forget it, you're trying to remember, you have to give a hint. Like some of my password hints used to be my most commonly used password, and it's like, you know,
That's terrible.
And to me, I know what that means right now. But like, I saw this post on Tumblr recently that was like, this girl's like, I got on my computer that I had when I was 11 for the first time in forever, and I checked out the password hint. It literally says, I know my password. I don't need this hint. So if you're trying to check this hint and you don't know the password, then you're not me, and you don't have permission to be on my computer. And that's what it said. And I was like,
oh my god, that's
but like,
hilarious.
you know, thinking about, like, do you ever go back and read stuff from when you were a kid, and like the stuff that was like important to you then, or stuff like you completely forgot about? You read it and you're like, oh yeah, like I used to think about that kind of stuff, or I used to like
worry about that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like there was like many times when I was very obsessed with like Power Rangers shows. I just kind of like, not that I forgot, but like I would go back and I'd have like extensive details written down, and I was just like, I forgot all of these details.
Oh,
like, you
wow.
know, like that kind of stuff. Or like, I forgot that I had a pen pal in middle school. One of my questions, I think, to myself when I was in 7th grade to my senior self was like, are you still friends with that pen pal? It's like,
Aww.
no, we weren't friends anymore.
Aww.
Not because we weren't friends anymore. She moved and we just kind of lost communication when she said it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know?
I understand. That makes sense. I wish I would have had something like that. I went to a school with a guy who just did that to himself. He's like, I will write notes to my future self and hide them in a place where I know either I'm going to lose them or just wait to open them for years later. He's like, and I'll go back and read them. I was like, that's really cool. First of all, that he does that. Second of all, that he actually has the mental power to wait. Because I know if I wrote a note to myself, I would go back and find it. And that's why I do journaling. But
it's like you can go back and read that yourself.
I can go back and read that anytime, but I know the longer I wait, the more valuable it's going to be to me.
And also later. The more fresh it is, like, you're like, I forgot all this stuff.
Yeah,
like,
and there's still a lot of stuff.
Remember
right.
all these really cool things.
Yeah, there's still a lot of stuff in my first one, which I started in 2016, that I don't remember now. But I'm so thankful that I started journaling. It really has helped me tremendously in just remembering things.
Yeah.
And it's going to be helpful when I'm an old lady, just like in the Notebook, and my beautiful husband reads them to me, and I'm forgetful, and I remember.
So, like, speaking of journaling, I've been writing stories since I was, like, literally in 3rd grade. I've been writing stories, whether they're, like, 5 pages long, or literally I wrote novels in middle school. Like, in my opinion, they were novels. They were long. They were long, complete stories. I wrote 3 stories in a trilogy, and I was working on a 4th that I just never finished. But along with that, I was a pretty avid reader. I would literally have books all the time with me, and I would just have them under my desk, and I'd be reading like this, kind of like one would
school.
At school, all the time during class. I would not pay attention. I'd be reading, and like I remember one of my teachers in middle school. He was my 5th grade teacher, and of the 4 teachers, he was my least favorite. And he did this thing that we like to imitate all the time, where he'd go, and he'd just be like so offended, and he like called me out on it several times, because, you know, I'm not supposed to be reading in the middle of the class while he's trying to teach me. And so he pulls me aside one time, and I don't remember any of it, but I basically remember being like, him being like, why do you do this? And I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, because it's boring. I already know all this stuff. I was very much, through 8th grade, I'm not ashamed to admit, I was ahead of my class. Like, I always knew what was going on. I never had to, like, study for things. I was just there. I knew it. So, like, I'd get bored in class, and so I'd read, or what I discovered later was that writing is actually easier to do in class than reading is, because you have a notebook out. You could be taking notes, but I'm not. I'm writing like a very detailed story while the teacher's talking. I'm just sitting there like narrating stuff. But I just like remember that memory of like, I would do that in class all the time. I'd just be like reading under my desk. Wow. I just always have a book.
I guess that's way better than anything else it could have been.
Totally.
I've heard stories of people, and this is high school, like, doing some crazy stuff during class. Like, I don't know how you could get away with the stuff these people did during class. Like, I don't even think I want to get into it, but that's good. That's productive.
Yeah.
That's safe. It's good for your health.
One of the other things that I remembered that I was actually going to say along with the story, and I just kind of forgot. So there was this book series that I read called Artemis Fowl. I was one of the people in this, at least in my class, that actually like avidly used the library. We had a program called AR. I don't know if you guys had AR.
Yeah.
It was like Accelerated Reader. Basically, we had to read a certain amount of books and take a certain amount of tests and get a certain amount of points to just like pass. I was always way above that, but we could use our AR points in like this shop to buy like cutesy little knickknacks. We had like candies and like little flashlights.
Did
and
the
little
shop
animals.
only come like twice a year for you?
Our shop was always open.
What?
Yeah, so anytime you had a certain amount of points, as long as you had already met your point goal, so you had to reach your point goal, and then after that you could start spending your points. Like, you could do that. But basically, I read a lot of books that no one else read. Like, Warriors Cats, no one else read that in my school. Inkheart, no one else read that in my school. Artemis Fowl was the same way, no one else read that. At least in my grade, it was just, they didn't read that. I was also higher reading level than a couple of my classmates. So like
Yeah.
there was a couple of my friends who were also nerdy readers. I had like one. She was about the same level as me, and we would always read the same stuff, and that's just because no one else was reading it, so we would. But Artemis Fowl is about this boy genius, which I realized. I don't know about you, but looking back at some of these stories, like reading about 12-year-olds like traveling around the world and like uncracking like civilizations and stuff, like as a kid you're like, yes, this is great, and now I'm just like, where are your parents?
Yeah, right.
Get out of there. But anyways, so like he discovered this fairy language that lives under the earth, and they have another language, and he was able to decode the language himself, and across the bottom of every single book was a story written in that language.
Yeah.
And it was just in there. And I didn't realize at the time, because the internet wasn't super duper, like it was a thing, but it wasn't like as
big
as it is now.
Yeah.
There's like a decoder online that you could use, but I decoded it myself. There was
Wow.
like, on the front of the book, there was like a passage, and I knew that that passage was also written inside the book. So I went there and I matched up every single symbol to letters, and there were some that weren't in there, so I'd have to be like spelling out a word, and there'd be one that I didn't understand, so I'd have to use context clues to figure it out, and I had an entire code where I could decode this entire thing. I wrote them all out, and that's like what I did, and then I started using it sometimes in my journals. I would like, if there's something I didn't want anyone else to know, I'd write it in that language, but like now I don't know it, so
Look
I'd
at
have to
you
like go back, but
go.
like I was bored, and I was like, I'm gonna crack this. And it was pretty easy, but like, it was like, I was pretty proud of myself. I was like, I cracked it and no one else has. Like,
Well, yeah, and whoever was, like, you could have been the first person who put that on the internet if you realized that at the time
internet was
people
like
were
an
gonna,
option.
yeah, and people were gonna demand that later
Yeah.
because you don't think about it at the
no,
time.
that wasn't something that you'd think about. Now it's something you would think about. But
And
like,
it's probably already on the internet.
it would have,
at
like,
the
by the time you thought about it, someone else already did it.
Yeah, thank God for those people too.
Yeah.
And thank
Those
God for
people are
people. Yeah, thank God for people who upload lyric videos or lyric
Lyrics in
pages.
general.
Because sometimes I don't know.
Do
what
you
people are saying.
remember what lyric videos were like when we were in middle school versus what they are now? Like, they were people using, like, PowerPoint with, like, music underneath of it to, like, put the lyrics, and they
Yeah.
didn't always know what it was either, so they were
Yeah.
just, like, words. But they were, like, super simple. You could never find music videos, or, like, there used to not really be a time when music was uploaded by the artists on YouTube. It was just kind
Yeah.
of like, we uploaded it because we wanted it, and, like, they didn't have lyric videos until later when they realized how many people would make lyric videos of their songs, and just make, you know, they would just have millions of views because it was, like, the best lyric video out there. And it wasn't by the artist, it was by some, like, 5th grader who really loved this song, and it's like, I want a lyric video, you know?
Yeah, and a
That was
lot
it.
of the videos were made, like you said, with PowerPoint or with
Movie Maker,
Movie
any of
Maker,
those,
and it was just
iMovie.
like maybe pink or blue words on the black background. Or
Yeah.
if you got lucky, you could find a music video with images, and most of them were from like photobucket.com. Do you remember that?
Oh my god.
And it would just like either slide through or just like fizzle in, and it was just typical pictures
Yeah.
just from anywhere. And sometimes they were like anime pictures. Do you remember that? I think anime pictures were
music
some of the
videos.
first.
Oh my god.
Yeah, those were some of the first ones that I remember seeing that weren't just the lyric videos, because they would just like throw on anime, because what else were they supposed to use?
Yeah.
And everybody loves anime characters.
I think that also is kind of where the start of like AMV videos came from, which I didn't realize until like the past 5 years of my life that AMV stands for anime music video.
Yeah.
But like literally they would just make clips of an anime and they'd take out this like the words and make like put a song to it. Like that was just like a thing.
Yeah.
Like, just a huge trend.
Yeah.
Do you have other stories you wanted to talk about?
I do have another one, and this is like rewinding back
Yeah,
to
totally.
more along the lines of childhood. My grandparents had a huge house, beautiful. My grandpa built it all himself, and my grandma's bathroom was black mostly
Heck yeah.
and rainforest themed.
Okay, she wasn't a beach.
No,
bathroom.
my grandma had the most unique taste, and the tub was black.
I feel like that's where you got it from.
The tub was black, the toilet was black, the sink was black,
I want to see that.
and everything
so
else is gold. Beautiful. I wish I could show you what it looked like then, because she had a giant concrete cheetah statue that sat over like the tub with a huge like rainforest plant.
I want
I
that.
wish I had a picture.
God,
My sister, or
someone has to have a picture.
my cousin has the cheetah statue. But anyway, it was spooky as all heck when you turn the lights off.
Yeah.
Because there's huge mirrors on the wall with the tub, and there's
Uh-huh.
huge mirrors on the opposite wall. So we had the genius idea to play Bloody Mary, because that's what you do.
That's what you do. I don't even know where someone first heard about this, but it was just like a known thing of like
Yeah.
what Bloody Mary was.
Amongst kids, who And how did we find out
We
about
just
it?
all, like, it was like, it's almost like children have a hive mind. You know? Where they all secretly are hearing things from each other without realizing it, and then as we get older, we shut off that ability. I'm just saying. Theory.
Hive mind theory. Yes, let's do that.
That's because it's so weird, because kids will have, like, the same games, like, just across the world. It's like, how? How would they all have the same games? Anyways.
We can go into that on a different podcast. But so, we decided to do this because my cousin came in. I don't remember where he used to live, but he was the one who gave us the idea. And he was really into the spooky stuff. So that's where we got the idea from. Maybe he got it from a friend. Maybe it was the child hive mind. So we're in there and we do it and we close our eyes and we're ready for spooky time and it's real. And we spin around 3 times and we say Bloody Mary. And of course nothing happened because that's what happens. You sit there and you kind of get nervous and your heart rate goes up, but that's so the fullest extent. But my cousin was a really big fan of those scary types of things. So the whole time that he stayed, and for some reason maybe it was like a tiny vacation or something, but he stayed with my grandparents for a couple of weeks, I think.
Yeah.
And he used to do that kind of stuff with us all the time. We went into a place in my grandparents' house that we called The Hole. It was just underneath this middle living room section that was kind of like almost like a floating area, but you could go in and you couldn't stand up in it, you could only crawl through it. And it was very small and mostly for storage, but we were kids and they let us make a hideout in there. So we had blankets set up and pillows, and it was a fort of all forts. String lights. And we had it was such an old-fashioned lamp because this is so long ago. It was like the lamp off of the Pixar introduction scene. So we had this lamp and there was a red shark balloon. We ripped the mouth open of the red shark balloon and put it over the lamp. And the whole little room was red and dark and scary. And he just like got in and he got all serious and he just starts telling us all of these scary stories. And we're kids and we're curious and we're ready and we're just here for it 100%. Right. And it was the best. I just remember that story so fondly. It's scary moments when you're a kid.
See, I was such an opposite. I never could do scary movies, couldn't do scary stories. I got freaked out super easy. Like, the scariest movie, like the first scary movie I watched was in 8th grade. I watched Zombieland, which isn't scary.
Yeah.
So, anyways, but the story I really want to tell, and I think it might have to be, it'll be my last story, I think, and if you have one more, but this will probably be the end. So, my story, though, is my theory on where I got my motion sickness from. So I used to never be motion sick. We took car trips all the time. I, just did whatever. And I never had a problem with motion sickness. Now, maybe I always was motion sick, but I was able to sleep in the car a lot. And anytime I'm asleep, I don't get motion sickness. But basically, I spent the weekend with my friend one time, and we have this thing called the Eastbury Fair. And it was a huge deal, and I'd never been to it before because it was far enough away from my house that it wasn't easy to go to, and we just didn't care enough. But she literally lives next to it. So it was going on, and we went there all weekend. And they had like literally 4 rides there, fair rides. They had the octopus, which it goes like this and in a circle. They had a scrambler. They had a salt and pepper shaker, which is when you're in like these little compartments and they put you upside down, and like it's literally the tiniest thing ever. And then they also have one of those kiddie roller coasters that has like 2 hills.
Oh, is it like, the dragon?
Yeah, probably. So we did the scrambler a lot, and because it's pretty empty of a fair, normally it'd just be me and her, so we'd be getting slung to the side together, and there was never a worry about like someone else being in the car with us.
Yeah.
The one time there was, we were like making sure they couldn't get next to us, not like physically, but we were just like, we didn't want them slamming into us when you go around those turns really fast, because we were just like middle school girls and we're not comfortable.
We don't
want
to be crushed.
So we did that, and the octopus though, like literally dozens of times. I only did the salt and pepper shaker once, and it made me kind of sick, so I was like, we can't do that one again because I don't want to go upside down. But we did those literally like the octopus we did at least 10 times, like I'm not even exaggerating. Ever since then though, I've noticed that if I go on a particularly windy car ride, or if I do rides similar to that, again, I'm more prone to motion sickness, and I think I just like hecked myself over by like going hard.
Really?
One day. That's just like always been my theory since. So yeah.
Or maybe it's just because you got older and your body changed, question mark?
Yeah.
Because I feel like whenever I go to the fair, I know I can handle it, because I've always been able to handle rides. I most of the time opt out, but I've never had a bad experience.
Yeah.
But now that I'm grown up, I am excited about it, and I go to get on, but I get distracted by food, and then I eat, and then I look at them, and I'm like, no, I don't think I want to go. Food is more important than rides, because you're paying.
Fair food is good.
Yeah, you're paying big money, and if I'd rather pay big money for something I can eat and hold in my hand than something I'm gonna experience.
Yeah.
But I would love to go to a place to get rides. I remember, I'm not sure if it was the East Perry Fair. It may have been Mayfest, which is still in Perryville where we're from. We were on. It seems like those times we had the shadiest rides.
They're all shady.
They
Fair
are.
rides are shady, okay?
We were on a Ferris wheel that went up, but it wasn't a regular Ferris wheel. You were in like the pods, and it kind of reminded me almost of the pods that you're in when you're in a salt and pepper shaker, because they're kind of loose on the side, and you can swing back and forth. So we got to swinging, and we went upside down at the top of the Ferris wheel, and thankfully we weren't upside down for long, and it flipped over eventually. But that was terrifying, because first of all, I don't think that was supposed to happen. No. Second of all, we could have fallen out and just died.
Those literally
there's
don't.
No,
they're
like,
not. There's
a
metal bar. That's it.
That's it. Yeah, I don't even think there was a top to it. We were just like holding on for our lives. Also, just one more thing I want to slip in when it comes to roller coaster stories. I remember taking a school field trip to Six Flags, and we were getting ready to take off on the Batman, and my harness, it's a big, huge thing, wasn't on tight enough. I could feel it, and right before we went, I like clicked it in. Just seconds. Like, we were going, and I was like, this doesn't feel right, and I kind of moved it, and it went click, and I was like, what would have happened if I didn't? Like, that is so
You would have been
scary.
you would have been on one of Shane's videos where you talked about horrible roller coaster deaths. Like, that would have been you. Oh my god.
Oh, I mean, hopefully it was just on a loose setting.
Right.
Maybe because, like, bigger people obviously get in, but I would have flopped around. Anyway. I think that was really good story time.
This was good, and I just, like, we thought we were talking about this before, and we're like, we'll think of stuff during, and it was super true. Like, we both just kind of, like, figured stuff out during it, you know?
Well, this is honestly why we decided to name the podcast Thought Hoarders, because this is really how Caitlin and I talk on the daily.
This is just us talking.
We'll just start a conversation about anything or everything, and more things just pop up. It might be memories, it might be story times, it might be ideas. Like, we might go into the Beehive conspiracy on another episode, but we just want to share it with you guys, and we hope that you can find some humor and relate to some of our stories, because honestly, the audience that we're trying to really reach out to the most is people who are probably around our same age and have most likely experienced the same things as us and can truly relate.
Yeah.
Especially with, I think of the horse thing all the time. Like, I want all you horse people to know we are here for you 100%.
This is the Horse Kid fan club here.
Like. The Horse Kid fan club. Thanks again, guys, for watching.
Thank you so much. Again, please like, subscribe. We want to hear from you, so just let us know what you're thinking. Even if you're watching this 2 years from when it's posted, 10 years from when it's posted, just tell us that you watched episode whatever this is, and we'll be like, awesome. Like, let us know, okay? But we will see you guys next time, okay? Bye.